You ever notice how the person you love the most can also be the one who cuts you the deepest? That's where my story begins. It wasn't some stranger who told me I'd never make it. It wasn't my boss, or a teacher, or even a rival. No, it was my wife. The woman I married. The one I thought would stand by me through anything. She looked me in the eye one night, after a long day of me trying and failing yet again, and she said the words I never thought I'd hear. You're a failure. You'll never amount to anything. Now, maybe you've heard things like that before, from someone close. You know how it feels. It doesn't just sting. It sinks. It gets inside of you. It makes you question everything. Your choices, your dreams, your worth. And in that moment, it wasn't just my wife doubting me. It felt like the whole world was laughing behind her voice. The thing is, I wasn't some lazy man sitting around. I tried. I really tried. Job after job, project after project, chasing an idea I believed in. But to her, all she saw were dead ends and wasted years. To her, every failure was proof. Proof that I wasn't the man she thought she married. But here's the part she didn't see. Every time she knocked me down, a small part of me still wanted to get back up. Not because I was strong, not because I was confident, but because somewhere deep down, I believed my story wasn't finished. That night, though, after her words, I'll be honest, I almost gave in. I almost believed her. Until something unexpected happened. Her sister. Yeah, the last person I thought would matter in this story. She saw me when I was at my lowest, when I had nothing left in me, and she didn't look at me with disappointment. She didn't say, "I told you so." Instead, she said something else, something that lit a fire in me I thought was gone. But I'll get to that soon. For now, all I'll say is this. Sometimes the people who claim to love you can chain you to your failures. And sometimes, the ones you never expected can be the key that unlocks everything. I thought I had lost it all, my marriage, my dreams, my sense of self. But in the shadow of that loss, something was waiting. Something that would change everything, not just for me, but for everyone involved. And the twist? It didn't come with applause or instant success. It started quietly, in a moment that felt almost too small to matter. But that moment, it became the turning point. You want to know how a man who was told he was worthless ended up proving them all wrong? Stick with me, because this story doesn't go where you think it will. And the first spark of it all began with her sister. When I first met Emily, my wife, she wasn't just another face in the crowd. She was the kind of woman who could walk into a room and pull the air out of it, not because she was loud, but because she carried herself like she knew exactly who she was. Confident, sharp, beautiful. And me? I was the dreamer. The one with ideas bigger than my wallet, chasing visions no one else could see yet. At the start, she said that's what she loved about me. My ambition, my hunger. She'd laugh and call me her big thinker, and I thought we'd take on the world together. But you know how it goes. At some point, the very thing that draws people in can turn into the thing they resent the most. We built a life, or at least tried to. She wanted stability, and I kept chasing opportunities that always seemed this close to working out, but never quite hit. Startups that folded, partnerships that crumbled, pitches that went unanswered. I'd come home with hopeful eyes and tired hands, and instead of finding encouragement, I'd meet silence, or worse, those looks that said, "Why are you still trying?" And it wasn't just the money. It was pride. She started comparing me to her friends' husbands, to her coworkers, to anyone who seemed to have it together. She'd ask questions she already knew the answers to. Why can't we have what they have? Why can't you just settle down and get a real job? Every word chipped away at me. And yet I stayed. Because somewhere beneath her frustration, I remembered the woman who once believed in me. Now, here's where the story gets interesting. Because in the background of all this, there was her sister, Claire. The quieter one. The one Emily rarely spoke about except to roll her eyes. Claire wasn't like her. She didn't care about appearances, or climbing ladders, or proving herself in front of anyone. She worked steady hours at a library, lived modestly, and carried this calm around her that felt grounding. At family gatherings, she was always in the corner, listening more than talking. But when I'd sit down near her, she'd ask real questions. Not about what I'd achieved, not about what I could afford, but about me. What I wanted. Why I believed in what I was chasing. She listened in a way Emily never did. I never thought much of it then. She was just the sister, someone on the sidelines of my marriage. But the night Emily called me a failure, Claire happened to be there. She heard it. She saw my face drop, saw me shrink inside myself. And later, when everyone else had gone to bed, she found me sitting alone in the kitchen, staring at the floor like my life had already ended. And that's when she leaned in, lowered her voice, and said something that would change the course of everything. But I'll tell you what those words were in a moment. After that night in the kitchen, everything changed, but not in the way you might think. I didn't suddenly become some unstoppable success overnight. No, the conflict started quietly, almost imperceptibly, like a storm brewing behind clouds. Emily, meanwhile, didn't soften. If anything, her frustration grew. Every failed idea, every project that hit a wall, seemed to confirm her opinion. "Why do you keep wasting your time?" she'd snap, and I'd shrink back, feeling that familiar mix of shame and anger. But inside me, a little spark had been lit, the spark Claire had started. The confusion was maddening. Part of me felt guilty for even dreaming bigger, for believing I could do more than just pay bills and go through the motions. But another part of me, one that had been smothered for years, wanted to fight back. I didn't even know what I was fighting for yet, only that I couldn't let Emily's words define me. And then there was Claire. She didn't just listen, she started giving me subtle guidance. Small nudges. Advice hidden in casual conversations, like planting seeds in my mind I didn't even realize were growing. She'd ask, "Have you tried looking at it this way?" Or, "What if you focus on the part that excites you most?" At first, I ignored it, thinking I didn't need anyone's help. But slowly, I began to see things differently. The tension at home was unbearable, though. Emily noticed, of course. She sensed the shift, but didn't understand it. She accused me of hiding things, of sneaking around, of something she couldn't quite name. And the more she pressed, the more I pulled back, caught between wanting her to see me differently and wanting to protect whatever fragile hope was growing inside me. It was a weird, twisted triangle. Emily, the voice of doubt. Me, the conflicted dreamer. And Claire, the silent catalyst. Each interaction felt like walking on a tightrope. One wrong step, one careless word, and everything could collapse. And then one evening, just when I thought I had a plan forming in my mind, Claire handed me something. A single piece of advice that seemed innocent enough, but it carried weight I wasn't ready for. It was simple, but it could either make everything work or destroy it all. And that's when I realized this wasn't just about proving Emily wrong. This was bigger than that. Much bigger. Because the choice I was about to make would change everything. Over the next few weeks, everything felt like walking through a storm with no shelter. I could feel the pressure building, the tension at home thick enough to choke me. Every glance from Emily carried judgment. Every word she said felt like a test I was destined to fail. And yet, with Claire quietly in my corner, something inside me started to shift. It wasn't immediate. It wasn't a sudden spark of inspiration that made me a success overnight. No, it was smaller things at first. A conversation here, a hint there, a question that made me think differently about the plans I'd been circling for years. Claire didn't push me, she nudged me. She didn't yell or demand. She just made me start seeing possibilities I'd ignored, buried under years of self-doubt and someone else's harsh words. The strange thing was, the more I started acting on her guidance, the more Emily grew suspicious. She'd watch me with that sharp, calculating gaze, like she could see my every move before I even made it. I wanted to tell her what I was doing, to show her that maybe she had been wrong all along. But deep down, I knew that wouldn't work. Not yet. And so the tension built quietly but insistently. I'd be working late into the night, Claire sending subtle messages, little clues, little encouragements. I could feel momentum starting to build, but the fear of being exposed, of failing publicly, of Emily laughing in the face of my dreams, it was constant, gnawing at the edges of every plan I made. I remember the night that really pushed me over the edge. Emily had thrown another verbal jab at me, something about how she wasted her life waiting for me to figure it out. I felt a surge of anger, shame, and desperation all at once. I stormed out of the house, feeling like I needed to escape, and ended up at the small cafe where Claire worked on her own projects. She looked up when I entered, calm as ever, and just said, "It's time." I froze. Time for what? I asked, my voice tight. She didn't answer immediately. She just slid a small envelope across the table. I picked it up, feeling the weight of it. Not the paper, but the meaning. Whatever was inside could change everything. the path I'd been fumbling toward for years. I wanted to open it, but something in Claire's eyes stopped me. There was a warning there, something about risk, about consequences, about the unknown. And in that pause, my mind raced. Was this going to be the turning point I'd been waiting for, the breakthrough that would prove everything to Emily? Or was it a trap, a mistake that could destroy not just my dreams, but my marriage, my relationships, everything I cared about? I took a deep breath, my heart pounding, staring at the envelope like it held the key to life itself. And in that moment, I realized one thing. Whatever I did next, nothing would ever be the same. Because the moment I opened it, the truth would hit. And that truth would change everything. I tore open the envelope, expecting maybe a plan, some guidance, or a list of contacts. What I found instead made my stomach drop. It wasn't instructions. It wasn't even advice. It was proof that someone had been secretly working against me all along. Every failed opportunity, every door slammed in my face, every whispered doubt Emily had thrown at me, it hadn't been random. Someone had been sabotaging me from the shadows, and worse, it wasn't a stranger. Claire looked at me, calm but unreadable. "It's worse than you think," she said, "and it's closer to home than you realize." I stared at her, heart hammering. Suddenly, everything clicked into place. Half-formed suspicions, little betrayals, casual remarks that didn't make sense before. Someone had been manipulating me, testing me, and maybe even enjoying my failures. And the cruelest part? I had no idea who to trust anymore. Not Emily. Not my friends. Not even myself. Everything I thought was leading to my success was built on a lie. And the worst was yet to come. The moment I realized someone close had been sabotaging me, everything inside me shifted. Fear, anger, shame, they all collided, and for the first time in years, I felt clarity. I wasn't just fighting to prove Emily wrong anymore. I was fighting for myself, for my dreams, for the truth. Claire had been guiding me all along, yes, but not just toward success. She had been preparing me to see the patterns, to understand who was pulling the strings. And now, armed with this knowledge, I had to make a choice. Confront the saboteur head-on, or fall back into the trap they had set for me. I started digging. Late nights, careful conversations, subtle traps of my own. Piece by piece, the puzzle came together, and the culprit emerged. It wasn't who I expected. Not Emily. Not a colleague. It was someone I trusted, someone who had smiled and offered help countless times, hiding envy behind kindness. The betrayal cut deep, sharper than any insult Emily had ever thrown my way. Armed with proof, I confronted them. The tension in the room was unbearable. Words were exchanged, voices rising, accusations spilling out like a dam breaking. I felt the weight of years of failure, humiliation, and doubt finally release as I spoke my truth. And then, just when I thought the worst was over, Claire revealed her final move. She had orchestrated a risky opportunity behind the scenes, a project that could either fail spectacularly or catapult me to the success I'd been chasing all my life. It was risky, dangerous, and completely outside my comfort zone. But it was also perfect. I took the leap. Every decision, every risk, every late night, every whispered piece of advice Claire had given me, all of it converged in that moment. And it worked. The project succeeded beyond anything I had dared imagine. Emily's doubt, the betrayal, the endless years of struggle, it all fell away. But the final twist? As I celebrated, a message appeared on my phone. Another name I thought was loyal, another person I trusted implicitly, had been watching, waiting, taking notes. And the game wasn't over. I had won this battle. But the war? That was only beginning. After the chaos settled, I finally had a moment to breathe. The house was quiet, the storm of betrayal, doubt, and tension fading into something calmer, though not completely gone. I looked around at the life I had fought so hard to reclaim, and for the first time in years, I felt a sense of ownership. Not just of my work, but of my choices, my ambition, my identity. Emily didn't know how to respond at first. She was stunned, confused by my sudden transformation. The words she had thrown at me for so long, failure, wasted time, had lost their power. I didn't need her validation anymore. But strangely, that didn't make me cold or bitter. I still loved her, and I still cared, but I understood that love wasn't about proving someone right or wrong. It was about standing firm in who you were, even when those closest to you couldn't see it. Claire, of course, stayed by my side. Quietly, without fanfare, she had been the anchor through it all, the one who nudged me, guided me, and reminded me to trust myself when everything else felt shaky. I don't think I could have done it without her, and I never forgot that. Her loyalty, her wisdom, her patience, it had changed my life in ways I'll never fully be able to explain. The person who had betrayed me? They were out of my life, removed not with revenge, but with careful detachment. I didn't want to waste energy on hate. That chapter closed quietly, and I found the peace that comes from stepping out of someone else's shadow. And Emily? Well, our relationship never went back to exactly what it was. Some bridges can't be fully rebuilt, not when the foundation has cracks. But we learned to respect each other's boundaries, to recognize the person we had become after the fire. Sometimes love means letting go of what you thought you needed from someone and finding strength within yourself. Looking back, the greatest lesson wasn't about success, money, or proving anyone wrong. It was about resilience, the quiet, stubborn refusal to give up on yourself, even when it feels like everyone around you is counting on you to fail. Life isn't about avoiding setbacks. It's about how you rise when the world tries to knock you down. As I sat there, thinking of everything, the failures, the betrayals, the unexpected guidance, the victories, I realized that life has a strange way of balancing itself. Sometimes help comes from where you least expect it. Sometimes the biggest hurdles teach you the most. And sometimes, the people you think will define you only set the stage for you to define yourself. The story didn't end with applause or recognition. It ended with understanding, growth, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing I had finally won. Not for anyone else, but for me. And as I looked at the horizon, I knew one thing for certain. Whatever came next, I was ready.